Welcome to Your Life and Legacy. I'm Christopher Nudo, and today I want to talk to you directly about the families, caregivers, and loved ones who are at the heartbeat of every legacy. Caring for your family isn't just about providing, it's about truly listening, understanding concerns, and recognizing when extra support is needed. Over my years as an estate planning attorney, I've seen how the strongest families are those who communicate openly and support one another through every season of life. Understanding concerns can be across generations. There are there's recognizing unspoken needs and really building a culture of openness. The role of empathy also is very important. Caring for your family is, like I said, just so much more about going to work and providing, although that is very important. It's really also about truly listening. Let me just illustrate this with a story. I once worked with a family where the eldest daughter quietly took on the role of caregiver for her aging father. Honestly, she rarely voiced her own needs, but during our planning session, I noticed that she was exhausted. And by encouraging the family to listen to her concerns, they realized that she needed more support. The simple act of listening brought that family closer and ensured everyone's needs were met. Now listen, the meeting the meeting was focused on dad and the fact that dad needed more help and that we needed to put a succession plan, a will and a trust together for dad. But the paying of the bills, the doctor's appointments, and all of the emotional stresses were falling on the one daughter. By bringing this stress to light, we were able to get other siblings to step up and help and take dad to the doctor and the everyday needs. Listen, every family faces concerns, whether, it's about finances, it can be about health. All of us sit around and wonder what the future is going to hold. The future, honestly, the unknown of what comes up tomorrow can be one of the scariest things that any family chooses to focus on. And I use the word choose when it comes to that anxiety, but a lot of that is just something that happens naturally within us. For example, I remember this one couple who they worried about how their children were going to handle the inheritance. And the first thing was it was great that they were able to articulate the fact that they had this concern. Many parents would remain quiet in this instant, but by acknowledging these worries, we were able to talk openly about different ways that we could help their children. Things like educating the children, creating structured trusts that help the children, not by aiding and giving them everything. We're not going to build a welfare child or a trust child. What we're going to do is we're going to educate, form, mold, and help the child with their inheritance. By acknowledging these worries and talking openly, we were able to create different individual trusts for each one of the children, and each design gave the parents peace of mind. Sometimes the needs in our family for our loved ones aren't spoken out loud. It could be a parent who is quieter than usual, or, a child that seems withdrawn. In one case, a client's mother started missing her family dinners. And, it turned out that she had early memory loss, a form of dementia. And the family really struggled with this because they didn't understand, because mom was the rock of the family. She very rarely got sick. She was always on top of things. She was the planner. She was the one who was, in essence, the glue of the family. And they were not accustomed to mom slipping at all. She had successfully aged through her 70s and now in her early 80s, and they couldn't figure out what was happening. And this was not usual in their family. By recognizing these signs, though, they were able to determine that mom wasn't hearing. Her hearing was going as it related to her age. And what we know is when people can't hear well, they become disengaged from the conversation. And and so by simply watching the cues that mom was pulling in, withdrawing from the family, they were able to discern that her memory loss was her withdrawing as a result of her hearing loss. The good news to this story is mom went for a hearing test, she got hearing aids, and now she again is the rock of that family. By paying attention to these subtle changes, the family was able to get her the help she needed early on. Also, all of this is building a culture of openness, which is key in your family. Try setting aside time for regular check-ins where everyone can share their thoughts and feelings without judgment. Trust me, it's much easier for me to tell you that these are the things to do than actually implement them. There is nothing more judgmental than a family, your siblings, your parents. Trust me, I understand. But the best families work through these things. They have open communication and share what is concerning them. And if you are loving, you're going to embrace each family member's position and where they're at, and understand that their point of view may not be your point of view, but all the points of view brought together are really the definition of your family. Your family might use a meeting. It may share a journal. It might do a group chat. I mean, that would be pretty typical today. But the bottom line is you want to keep the family lines of communication open. Whether it's 2 people in the family or 10 people in the family, everybody's going to have their opinion. And a lot of it's going to be driven by at what point in the family they are. Are you the middle child? Are you the firstborn? Are you the 6th child in the family? Are you mom or your dad? Remember, all of these cultural things will play into the communication, and you need to meet people where they're at versus making sure you win in the conversation. All of the, let's just admit that all of the above really revolves around the power of empathy, where we put ourselves in each other's shoes. We make decisions with compassion, and that's the foundation of a strong family legacy. So now's your opportunity to take the time, reflect on your family, reflect on your parents. Are you regularly checking in with mom and dad? When you check in with mom and dad, are you giving each of them equal focus? Because in my experience, mom will overshadow the conversation and leave dad quiet, or vice versa, because dad might be more of an introvert and mom might be an extrovert. And so you want to make sure that you give each of them the attention they need. And then your siblings, your brothers and your sisters. Listen, I know that sibling relationships are very difficult. They're born from decades of conflict and decades of different opinions. But now in our adulthood, it's time to really focus on those relationships and to put their feelings before your own, and try and demonstrate this kind of empathy, love, and affection. This will build a great community within your family. With a great community, we can build a strong family legacy. In a moment, I'll share practical ways you can start these conversations and recognize when your family might need a helping hand. Welcome back to Your Life and Legacy. Love what you're watching? Don't miss a moment of Your Life and Legacy or any of your favorite Now Media TV shows, live or on demand, anytime, anywhere. Download the free Now Media TV app on Roku or iOS and enjoy instant access to our full lineup of bilingual programming. It's in English and Spanish. You prefer to listen on the go? Hey, catch our podcast version of the show right on Now Media TV's website, nowmedia.tv. From business and breaking news to lifestyle, culture, and everything in between, Now Media TV is streaming 24/7, ready whenever you are. Welcome back to Your Life and Legacy. Let's take time now to discuss how to recognize when families may need an extra bit of help. Listen, I've mentioned, and it's important to reiterate, that even the most loving families have challenges that can feel absolutely overwhelming. And if you're watching this right now, I know you know what I'm talking about. It could be the one child who gets hangry all the time and, calls you right in the middle of the busiest part of your day. And you know that if you could simply just get him the proper nutrition and meal, he would get his life back on track. But you need to stop what you're doing and focus your attention on him or her. It could be your one child who is, doesn't enjoy their job, is often suffering with some form of depression, or is body shaming because they don't like their figure. As parents, we take on all of these burdens of our child. And as a child, we need to recognize that our parents are taking on all the concerns that we have. It's very common for a person like myself to consider my problems to be my problems. And the term misery loves company. Well, then we take our problems and we share them with others, casting our burdens upon others. Now, when you cast your burdens upon your parents, because of the way God has created us, the parents bore those concerns. We take on the pain of our own children. And so we need to be conscious of all of these different challenges that are very overwhelming. Now, we're going to need to be caring for aging parents, navigating health crises, and planning for the future. The first step is recognizing when people need support. I like to look for signs when people are overwhelmed. Now, what are some of those signs when people are overwhelmed? Well, they could be signs of increased stress. It could be frequent arguments. Often, It's trouble managing daily responsibilities. And I've seen families transform by simply reaching out for help before things hit a breaking point. Now, if you're focused right now on the fact that, hey, Chris, my family has already hit that breaking point. We're already in crisis mode. You don't understand. We need help. Well, there's professional guidance, therapists, financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, and a myriad of help that is available. But my point today is don't wait for a crisis to seek professional guidance. The legacy of your family is going to have its ups and downs. A family is like a roller coaster. It's going to have extremes. It's going to have an extreme high point. It's going to have extreme low points. It's going to have some loop-de-loops. And trust me, you might say I'm dizzy from the loop-de-loops, but loop-de-loops are just part of the family experience, and each person in the family gets their time to loop-de-loop. You know what I'm talking about. These are the moments where we're changing. I'll use illustratively my own life when I got married. I got married late in life. I was in my late 20s. I don't know if that's late in life. That's later than earlier, right? And I was I grew up in a household where mom was the rock of the family. And so now I am sharing my life with my new wife. The transition of my mom being the female leader in my life to my wife sharing our life together seems like it should be easy. It seems like it should be very natural. But for me, it was not. I needed the first years of my marriage disconnecting from mom and dad and connecting my life with my wife turned out to be a challenge. And that challenge recognized itself in various ways. Number one, there was a disconnect between my mother and I. Therefore, she felt a loss in her life. Then there was my wife who had a reasonable expectation that her husband was her partner and they were doing everything together. But I needed to mature and grow into that role. And so there was a little bit of crisis over there. So I was fortunate in not letting things reach a breaking point. We sought guidance and help, and it was pointed out to me that these deficiencies, and I was able to grow, mature, and now it's been more than 30 years that my wife and I have been together, but it was these kind of experiences that we needed to go through in order to build a relationship. Remember, help is available if you need it. And again, that's professional guidance counselors, therapists. You know, maybe finances are your problem. You find yourself in debt and you need a financial advisor. Even estate planning attorneys like myself and financial planners and accountants come together to help families with budgeting, with planning for the future. And ultimately, all of this is defining your legacy. Getting advice early can prevent bigger challenges down the road and give everyone peace of mind. I recall a family who came to me after their father came down with a sudden illness. Their siblings were arguing. They were overwhelmed by medical decisions and financial questions. By seeking help together, they found clarity and unity. We created a plan that gave each person a role, reducing stress and restoring harmony. Remember, you're not alone. community resources like support groups and even your church can offer emotional and practical support. Don't hesitate to lean on these networks. Legal and financial planning are also powerful safety nets. Tools like estate plans, powers of attorney, health care directives can protect your family during difficult times. The family that I just talked about with the father who had the sudden illness, we were able to create roles within the family and designate authority through powers of attorney for healthcare and financial matters, allowing the family to navigate the illness or an unexpected loss because the proper tools were in place. And most importantly, asking for help is a sign of strength. It's not weakness. But yet, I know personally that, our inner souls say when we cry out for help, we feel weak. We should be stronger, especially as men. But remember, it's not a weakness. It is your superpower when you ask for help. If you're not sure how to get started with the conversation, start saying something. I think we could use some extra support right now. You might be surprised how much relief that brings just in saying it out loud. One of the greatest gifts you can give your family is attention. Active listening means putting aside distractions and making space for honest conversations. Here are some techniques that I've used and you can use. Maintain eye contact. Ask clarifying questions. Reflect back on what you've heard. These are simple steps that can help bring the proper communication and help to your family. I mentioned this in our first segment. Honor those differences, especially when making important decisions. My brother and I, we don't often see things alike, but I work hard to honor how he sees things, and I know he works hard at hearing what I have to say. Remember, every voice matters. Creating safe spaces for dialogue sets the ground rules for discussions that will make for comfortable sharing even in sensitive topics. In my work as an estate planning attorney, I've seen how understanding each person's wishes leads to a plan that truly reflects a family's values and needs. It builds trust over time. Be patient and persistent and connect. These connections will be worth the effort. Listen, for those of you who want to know more about my journey, you can always find videos and articles at our website at NTegrityLaw.com. We'll be right back to talk about and to continue this conversation into practical application of helping the family. Welcome back to Your Life and Legacy. Today we're having a discussion talking about all of the elements of a family and how it will impact ultimately that family's legacy. In this segment, I want to talk about your education into estate planning and how that'll help define your goals. What everybody knows is the more that you know, the better the decisions you can make. And most families really don't plan ahead when they do an estate plan. They come and they visit and they say to themselves, I've heard from a friend that I need a trust, or, I'm getting older and I've never done a will, or I want to be prepared in the event that I get sick. So I need powers of attorney put in place. But they don't really understand the goals that they're trying to accomplish. So when they're asking for documents to accomplish something, they're not connecting it with the things they should be connecting it with as it relates to their family. So let's take a couple of minutes and unpack some of the most common things, the common goals that families have when doing an estate plan. One is the avoidance of probate. In avoiding probate, what you're doing is you're avoiding the court-appointed process of transferring your estate to your heirs, to your children typically. And people are like, well, why do you want to avoid this? Well, in many states, the probate process is very old, dating back centuries and even more than centuries, multiple centuries. Yeah, like going back to well, honestly, if you go back to the time of Moses in the Old Testament, you will find evidence of the beginning stages of probate, as crazy as that is. And those processes and procedures, in many respects, are still used today, although no clay tablets. So, those processes have not been brought forward into today's modern era. So we can accomplish the succession of your estate to your heirs by other means and avoidance of probate. Also, taxes. In many instances, estates are faced with taxes. And so we want to focus on minimizing those tax burdens by doing proper estate planning. This is a goal. There's privacy concerns. When you pass away, do you want your entire life available for anybody to find out about? Or do you want to keep it very close-knit with just the people who are part of the family that are part of the succession plan, knowing what's going on? There's the need for access for information. When you die, you've died and given up the ability for somebody to question you about how to access your assets and where they're located. I can tell you stories even current today where a gentleman died, very successful doctor, and we are searching high and low, near and far, looking for his assets because he had a lot of them in a lot of different places. Asset protection is a goal, meaning that we want to make sure that your heirs, the assets that they're receiving through your estate plan, are protected and can't be taken from anybody. We want to minimize the estate administration cost and help those who may need the tools to help themselves. And what does that mean? Well, you could have a child that has Down syndrome, as an example, and is maybe high functioning, but just needs extra help. And this is a goal. So, as an estate planning attorney, my mission is to walk alongside families like yours and helping you navigate the legal, emotional, and practical aspects of planning for the future. Let me share a story that's close to my heart. I once worked with a family who had a child who was special needs. And they were extremely worried about what would happen if they were no longer there to care for them. Together, we created a special needs trust and a care plan that gave them peace of mind, knowing their child would always be supported. They didn't even know what a special needs trust was, and they didn't even fathom what life would be like if they didn't exist anymore when they died. But now, one of the daughters will be in charge of their special needs son, and the money will be set aside for his care and his housing and his needs. And The child will continue to receive his government benefits without jeopardy because the inheritance from mom and dad went into a special needs trust. I'm committed to more than just paperwork. I take a real holistic approach, addressing not only the legal details, but also the emotional and relational needs of your family. Every single family is unique, and you want a program, an estate plan that is tailored as the perfect solution to fit your specific circumstances. Whether you're a blended family, which let's just pause for a moment, because more than 50% of you watching come from a blended family where mom and dad and the children may not all be naturally born together. And the blended family has unique circumstances that need to be dealt with. One of the biggest concerns that I see in blended families is remarriages. Let me unpack that for a moment. It's not uncommon when for somebody who's divorced once to be divorced twice, and the third marriage is the charm. I don't know why that is. I'm not an expert in marriage relationships, but I will tell you it's very common. And so when you have blended families from divorces, there is always this lingering fear in the back of each spouse's mind that if something happens to me, is my new spouse going to get remarried? And how can I protect my children in the event of that remarriage? And so blended families take special care and special need to address these concerns. And by the way, most blended family parents won't bring up these concerns. These are nagging thoughts in the back of their mind. And when a good planner brings these things to light, it relieves people of these tensions that are in the air, kind of the elephant in the room, if you would. We've already talked about caring for someone with special needs, but how about facing complex challenges? And the complex challenges could be a family business. It's so common where you'll have 3 or 4 children and mom and dad have built a wonderful, thriving family business. 2 of the children work in the business, but the other 3 have no desire to work in the business. Do you just give the business to the 2 children that are working it, or do you find some form of equality where the people who are working the business get to continue it, but yet the ones not working the business still get an equal share? These are the guided kind of questions that are necessary to guide through difficult conversations about inheritance, about healthcare decisions, could be guardianship. But all of these things need to be addressed with sensitivity and with clarity. The goal should be to provide you with the tools and the confidence you need to make the best choices for your loved ones. Now, those tools are going to be the topic of our next segment, where we unpack why a living trust, or why an irrevocable trust, why a will, why powers of attorney for healthcare and property, and what a living will is. These are just a smattering of different tools used. We'll talk about beneficiaries, and we're going to ultimately wrap this up with a faith-based focus. So, we'll be right back for our final segment, and we look forward to seeing you. Welcome back to Your Life and Legacy. Loving what you're watching? Listen, don't miss a moment of Your Life and Legacy or any of your favorite Now Media TV shows, live or on demand, anytime, anywhere. Download the free Now Media TV app on Roku or iOS and enjoy instant access to our full lineup of bilingual programming in both English and Spanish. Prefer to listen on the go? Catch the podcast version of the show right on Now Media TV's website, nowmedia.tv. From business and breaking news to lifestyle, culture, and everything in between, Now Media TV is streaming 24/7, ready whenever you are. Welcome back to Your Life and Legacy. As we wrap up today's episode, let's talk about some of the most effective estate planning tools available and how the right attorney can help you use them to reach your family goals. Estate planning isn't just about preparing for the future. It's about making sure your wishes are honored, your loved ones are protected, and your legacy is secure. There are several tools that can help you do this. Now, before I dive into those tools, I want to step back and I want to reflect on you and your family. Every family has a basis of faith and culture in their life. In my family, it is a Christian faith. We believe in the salvation that comes through Jesus Christ, and we believe in the Bible. Now, I respect all of you out there that have your own form of belief. And it's very important that you lean into your faith when doing an estate plan, because from your faith comes the things that are important for your family. The relationships that we nurture with our spouse, with our parents, and with our children are often greatly influenced about what we believe. And so before we get into the actual documents, I want to take this time and have you reflect on what are the values that your family relies upon. I'm a strong believer in having a high moral character, having integrity in your life. And what does that look like? How does that play out? It would seem so obvious if I said something like telling the truth, but you'd be amazed at how many people lie and don't even realize they're lying because they use lying with their family as a form of manipulation. That is very unhealthy and is destructive. There's also the cultural parts of the family, the roles of mom and the role of dad, the role of children and siblings. And your faith is very impactful in defining these roles and ensuring that the relationships are strong. Once you understand your family values, what is important for your family, and what it's going to look like when you die and your assets get passed to the next generation, is going to be critical when planning your estate. So with that as the foundation, let's unpack some of the documents. In an estate plan, it's very common to have a living trust. Now, people always ask the most fundamental question, Chris, what's the difference between a living trust and a will? And I'm going to tell you that in many respects, they're very much the same. They're both designed to allow your assets to be managed by someone else after you die and ensure smooth transfer to your heirs when the time comes. But the biggest difference between a will and a trust is in how they are administered. A will is administered through the probate courts, and a living trust is administered outside of the probate courts. That is honestly the biggest advantage of a living trust. Assets in a living trust avoid probate, which means your estate can be settled privately and efficiently outside of the public court system. Also, having a living trust can provide many complex scenarios in the form of tax avoidance, asset protection, special needs planning, as we've already discussed. And so that's why I start with the living trust, because it is essentially a family settlement agreement. It's an agreement mom and dad put together that thereby writes the rules for which, after mom and dad die, the assets get transferred to your heirs. Next, let's talk about a will. Honestly, a will is the most foundational document that any estate has. And even if you have a living trust, you're going to have a will in the documentation. We've already talked about the will is similar to a trust in that it specifies how you want your assets distributed to and who should be in charge. One of the things that a will is very good at is caring for your minor children if a guardianship is necessary. And guardianships are required for children who are under the age of 18. Now, while a will does go through probate, it is an essential part of any comprehensive plan. Now, I know you're saying to yourself, Chris, you're confusing me now. If I'm going to have a will and it's going to go through probate, and you told me I didn't want to go through probate, and that's why we were doing a trust, why are you bringing all of this up? Because you're confusing me very much. Well, I'm very sorry for the confusion. Let me clarify. One size does not fit all, and you're going to hear this several times from me. A will can be part of a trust plan as a safety net, and we call that a pour-over will, or a will can be a standalone part of an estate plan. And the complexity of your financial and family situation will dictate whether or not you're using your living trust as the foundational document, or whether you're using a will as your foundational document when you're planning a comprehensive plan. Next, there's the healthcare power of attorney. And this document lets you appoint someone who you trust to make medical decisions on your behalf if you're unable to do so. Alongside of the healthcare power of attorney is the financial power of attorney that helps someone help you manage your finances if you become incapacitated. Let's use a very popular example, which is people who come down with some form of dementia or end up with a stroke. Both of these are very difficult times for families, because you take people who have been capable for decades and decades at managing their own financial affairs and managing their own healthcare decisions, and instantly, in a blink of an eye, they can no longer make these decisions. That's where having a healthcare power of attorney and a financial power of attorney are essential. The moment this happens, the people that you've appointed in these documents can start acting on your behalf. If you do not have these documents, then your estate may have to go to guardianship. And guardianship is going to include the courts, which is going to be very expensive and very time consuming. So we talked about goals early on, such as avoiding probate, minimizing taxes, keeping your estate private, creating asset protection for your heirs. And also, we've failed to mention that many people like to provide for charities and other philanthropic causes. And this is the time that you sit down and you make these plans. Having these goals will set forth the unique aspect of your plan that will be designed for you, curated in a very holistic way, because we're going to sit down and listen to all of your needs and concerns. This is where a good advanced estate planning attorney comes in. The best estate planning attorney isn't just a document preparer. They are a listener. They're a guide. They're a partner. My role is to understand your concerns, your hopes, and your dreams, and then to help you choose the right tools to achieve your goals. Whether you want to protect your family's privacy, reduce taxes, but most importantly, leave a lasting legacy for you, because that's what you care about most. Helping navigate your story and your journey. Listen, in these 48 minutes together, we can't possibly unpack everything, but you can go to our website, NTegrityLaw.com, and you can find articles, videos, and stories that will really help you guide your story. Remember, estate planning is about more than documents. It's about caring for your loved ones, understanding their needs, and building a legacy that reflects your values. With the right guidance, you can face the future with confidence and peace of mind. If you have questions or want to start your own estate planning journey, I invite you to reach out. I'm Christopher Nudo, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. For our viewers, I hope today's conversation inspires you to reflect on your own story, the people who've shaped your life, and the ways you can make a difference in your community. Legacy isn't just about the future. It's about the choices we make every single day. Until next time, I'm Christopher Nudo, and this has been Your Life and Legacy, helping you shape the life you live and the legacy you leave.